the endless, their powers, and who is the prodigal in the Sandman. An introduction to the dysfunctional everlasting family of Morpheus. This piece includes the Sandman spoilers, so beware. Salutations to everybody. I hope you're having a good day. Before we begin our video for today, I want to sincerely thank everyone who has supported our channel and assure them that we will continue to work hard to provide the best material we can. Without further hesitation, let's get to the video. Creator of the iconic comic book series The Sandman, Neil Gaiman, together with producers David S. Goyer and Alan Heinberg, faced a significant task when translating it for Netflix, maybe more so than other authors. Gaiman authored 80 issues of The Sandman between 1989 and 1996, creating a vast narrative tapestry in a format that encourages deep lore and divergences. The series included a variety of historical characters, including William Shakespeare and Augustus Caesar, as well as DC Comics heroes and legendary creations from many cultures. However, one of the most crucial components of Morpheus' universe was created by Gaiman himself and may be difficult for readers who are unfamiliar with the book to grasp: the endless, Morpheus's dysfunctional family of quarreling siblings. You may now watch The Sandman on Netflix. But if you're not among those who are acquainted with the comic book series, here, we describe the 7 Eternals. If you have already begun watching the Sandman series on Netflix, which is based on the Vertigo comic book produced by Neil Gaiman, you have probably questioned who the Everlasting Seven are if you have not read them or are familiar with them. We must first define the 7 Eternals in order to identify each member of the family of brothers that makes up the Eternals. They are essentially eternal representations of crucial cosmic events. According to legend, these beings will exist until death seals the cosmos at the end of time. The fact that each of these characters' names starts with the letter D is an interesting feature about them: destiny, death, dream, destruction, desire, despair, and delirium. The word translated into the English language with its appropriate article, the endless, may be assumed to be an anagram of the family name. The 7 endless each have their own kingdom that mankind visit. They may be absolute inside their domains and able to play with visitors, but they, generally, recognize that humans are there for them, not the other way around. Even though the endless live outside of the control of deities and are personifications of cosmic entities, it could be beneficial to conceive of them as deities. Members of the endless typically have human appearances, mirroring the perceptions of those with whom they interact. As a result, when Morpheus meets Shakespeare, he seems as a guy from the 16th century. Nevertheless, when he converses with a man from an unknown African tribe from centuries earlier, he is a black man dressed similarly. But despite the fact that they aren't technically humans, the endless frequently behave like regular people by getting into petty arguments and hatching crazy schemes. It first doesn't seem like much to anthropomorphically describe something as abstract as the events we shall explain. Even if it has been done in certain instances previously, the Sandman's plot makes you realize that what you see is not the whole picture. Then, we'll start by introducing you to the characters you can already see in the Netflix series, the Immortal Ones. The 7 endless are divided into the following categories according to their individual jobs. Dream. The realm of the dreaming, where people go to sleep, is ruled by our title character. As king, he is in charge of establishing the many regions and inhabitants of the dreaming. Dream generates people's nightmares, especially the Corinthian, and makes sure they all remain in their proper places. Dream has access to humankind's limitless imagination, which enables him to utilize ideas as a gift, as when he inspires Shakespeare, or as a weapon, as when he deploys narrative ideas to punish a writer who kidnaps a muse. As the anthropomorphic representation of actual dreams. Morpheus, Oneiros, the Shaper, the Prince of Stories, and very rarely the Sandbox are just a few of the titles he goes by, after the Celtic legend about a goblin who threw sand into the eyes of sleepers, thus allowing them to sleep. The television show The Sandman is named after this last name, despite the fact that it practically derives from a different character with the same name in the DC Comics world. Dream frequently annoys his younger siblings, notably Desire and Despair, because he is the third oldest member of the family after Destiny and Death. But he also has depressive episodes and acts of brutality, sometimes even toward people he loves, including his own kid. Dream's conceit drives the Sandman's greater storyline, turning the tale into a huge tragedy, more so than his captivity by magician Roderick Burgess. His helmet, which was fashioned from the skull and spine of an old deity who sought to steal his throne, is displayed in the Gallery of the Eternals as his symbol. Both in the comic and the television show, this character is shown as a rigorous individual who is devoted to his duties. But as time goes on, we can see how he changes, even to the point where he starts to make up for his previous transgressions. Despite this, he doesn't always acknowledge his errors because he is a very arrogant person. The protagonist of the narrative is Dream. He is the third of the family's 7 brothers and resides in the changeable world known as Sleep. Despite being a realm full of autonomous creatures, they are at his service. The comic book versions of this character are shown as a tall, skinny, pale guy with black eyes that have light spots in the middle that resemble stars in the night sky. An approximation of what Tom Sturridge, a British actor, portrayed in the Netflix series and what we could see in real life. Death. The second most powerful and most feared member of the Endless family, Death is the eldest sister. Death's domain is known only as the light at the end of the tunnel on rare occasions. Throughout The Sandman, Death is mostly seen doing her duty by leading folks into the afterlife, frequently in a gentle and humorous manner. Death admires people and appreciates their anger when they learn that their lives are finished, perhaps more than any of her family members. She is one of the most friendly Eternals of them all and is portrayed in the comics as a stunning goth female. It is not unexpected that she is one of the people who cares the most for her brothers because she is typically quite kind and polite, which is something that one would not anticipate from the anthropomorphic personification of Death. Kirby Howell-Baptiste, an actress who was most recently featured in the film The Coupon Queens, portrays the character. She frequently assists her brother, who dreams of her, in the Sandman comics, exactly like in the television show. A cross of ink is used to signify her seal in the Eternal Gallery. The ANJ is an Egyptian hieroglyph that signifies life and is a common emblem in this culture's iconography. The Key of Life or Egyptian cross are other names for the Ansata cross, or crux ansata in Latin. Whether he wants it or not, Death visits Dream because of her kind temperament and offers guidance and assistance. This occasionally causes her to clash with her other siblings, but her status and influence keep them in control. Death used to carry out her responsibilities with icy practicality until she developed into the endearing goth lady we meet in the comics. The others are aware that pushing Death too far might cause her to turn back to her former habits. They claim that when a person sees her, they are unable to forget her and may even develop an obsession with her. She will allegedly be the last person in the universe, and she will be the one to shut off creation once everyone has departed. This attitude contrasts with her siblings. She is more compassionate toward all living things. Because she occasionally takes on a human form for a day in order to have a day in which she can feel all that people feel, including love, hatred, desire, and, yes, death. Desire. The most overtly evil Endless, at least in the Sandman's major story arc, Desire commands the threshold and is shown as a huge statue of itself. Desire, as their name indicates, draws strength from human longing but loses control over subjects after they obtain their desires. As a result, Desire enjoys playing tricks on people and putting them in a constant state of yearning. Desire, the most ephemeral of the endless, assumes the appearance of whatever the recipients they address deem attractive. He is the fifth brother in the family. He is the personification of all desires, including those for passion, love, and hunger. The character is performed by Mason Alexander Park, an actor we may recognize from the canceled Netflix series Cowboy Bebop. In the comic, he is shown as a beautiful and skinny androgynous with eyes like those of a lion. He basically lives inside himself, but unlike his dream brother, his kingdom really resembles a huge statue of himself standing nude and pointing upwards. His kingdom, which he calls the Threshold, is exceedingly sophisticated. The extension of its domains is where the complexity lies. It is stated that the interior is so expansive that if you spent a lifetime exploring every room, you would never step foot in the same one twice. In fact, you may even pass away before you could complete this place's infinite journey. Desire frequently finds themselves at odds with their siblings, notably Death and Dream, because they don't respect humanity. Desire dislikes the influence and respect their older brothers and sister have, as do most younger siblings. It will use Delirium, the youngest sister, and Despair, their twin, to carry out its schemes and continuously create discord among the endless. Leaving this aside, it turns out that Desire is a highly hazardous character since he is Despair's twin brother and is extremely volatile and impetuous. We learn through the storyline that he has a bitter animosity against Sandman. A heart is the symbol of desire in the Eternals gallery. It should be noted that each brother has a gallery in his kingdom filled with summonable symbols that serve as representations of each brother. Despair. At first look, Despair would appear to be Desire's victim. Humans frequently find themselves in Despair's domain because they are unable to obtain the things they desire, giving Desire the advantage. But as Despair's tale progresses, it becomes clear that she is not only aware of but also actively involved in her own intentions, which occasionally diverge from Desire's. Despair dislikes Dream, just like Desire does, partly because of a match she lost against her brother. Despair, however, looks up to her elder brother Destruction the most of all the endless. The sixth sister, Despair, is also Desire's twin, as we've already revealed. She reigns as queen over the kingdom of Gray, which is entirely gray and vacant. A location where Despair resides in front of the several mirrors she uses to communicate with the outside world. Both conspire to put Sandman in a 100-year jail sentence. Huge rats and bats live in the gloomy realm and follow Despair around. She is also the personification of hopelessness and agony, which are the only emotions left over once a desire expires or is not fulfilled. Despair resembles an extremely chubby, nude, and toothy lady. Donna Preston, an actress we were able to witness in the series Apocalypse Wow, plays her in the show. Her symbol in the gallery is a hook-shaped ring that typically sticks back into itself. She appears to have a particular fondness for destruction and desire among all of her siblings. She may feel more connected to these two moods since they frequently come before or follow Despair, which might be the reason for this. Despair's present form is more recent than most endless, despite the fact that she is not the youngest. Although they had some physical similarities when she was alive in her first form, which died hundreds of years ago, her present shape is far more aloof and icy than the first. Although Despair doesn't have quite the same hatred for people as her siblings do, she does want them to suffer, which gives her greater control over them. Destiny is the oldest and most enigmatic member of the Endless. He moves through a garden in his domain while holding the chained Book of Destiny in his hand and reading it. Fans of DC television adaptations may recall the book from its central role in the CW crossover Crisis on Infinite Earths. The book captures all that can, has, and will occur while taking into consideration his somewhat distant personality. We will have to wait till the second season of The Sandman to see her in action. The unending garden is known as the Garden of Pathways, which is separated into a region full of crossing and forking labyrinths. Destiny hosts gatherings of the endless frequently, despite his outward stoicism. Even if his vast knowledge of everything makes his siblings' lofty ambitions and dreams appear ultimately trivial, he still seems to care about them. Although he, like his brothers and sisters, is capable of changing his shape, Destiny is typically shown as an elderly white guy wearing a hood. Simply put, he lacks the motivation to do so. The book in his hand serves as both a record of all that has occurred, is currently occurring, and will occur, as well as his seal in the gallery of the eternal. Everything that has ever occurred, is currently happening, and will ever happen in any and all worlds is written in the Book of Destiny. Additionally, no one else save him is able to support his entire weight. Even if they could, though, he would still be unable to transfer, give, or discard the book since it is linked to him. In fact, one might argue that the two are one. Delirium. The youngest and most seductive of the endless is Delirium. Delirium is sometimes portrayed as a young woman with multicolored hair who is aloof, chaotic, and prone to using non sequiturs and incomplete words. Even though she appears to be oblivious of or disinterested with the agony that humans occasionally endure, she seems to like engaging with others. In general, this inclination seems more amusing than vengeful. Is the youngest of the Eternals and the sixth and last sister. She was once known as Delight. Although the reason for her suffering is never revealed, it is implied in her comics that she experienced a great deal of it, which led her to alter her persona. Delirium's carefree outlook, though, is a relatively recent development. Delirium initially appeared as Delight, a more organized being that actively strove to make people happy. Delirium won't recognize her former self, and not even Destiny understands why she changed. Delirium may not yet be in her ultimate form, though, as bits of Delight occasionally poke through the facade in times of extreme distress. The Eternals believe she doesn't know all that much. She, however, had more information than Destiny, but the cost of that wisdom was insanity. In the comics, she appears as a teenage girl with highly pop-rock hair, one blue eye, and one green eye. She has the most inconsistent look after Dream, frequently changing appearance. She is the head of her own world, the world of Delirium, just like her siblings. A disorganized jumble of colors, a form that is always shifting, and a place where many voices are heard speaking simultaneously. An hourglass in the middle of the kingdom bears the words tempus, which is a play on the Latin term tempus fugit, or time flies, and meaning time breaks. It is a perilous domain where anybody may get imprisoned without realizing it. Her distinctive feature in the Gallery of Eternals is a vibrant, frantic whirlwind. Destruction and the Prodigal. Destruction, the fourth oldest endless, also goes by the name Olethros. Destruction reigned over a nameless world of perpetual change and chaos for the most of his life. Destruction regularly interacted with death, desire, and despair because of the nature of his realm. Despite the gory nature of his art, Destruction did not despise people or take pleasure in their agony. Instead, Destruction understood the value and necessity of change, despite the discomfort. Destruction maintained that the death of things brings about the creation of new things rather than fueling humanity's bloodlust. Another one of the characters whose image we have not yet seen. In spite of his name, ushers in new beginnings rather than the end. Since it turns out to be a symbol of transformation, in other words, the counterpart of destruction is the birth of creation and life. Despite the fact that we are aware of the physical and logical existence of his kingdom, the name of it is never revealed in the comic. That was the situation, at least. Around the advent of the Age of Reason, Destruction eventually left his home world and his leadership role in the Endless. For obvious reasons, he is sometimes referred to as the Harbinger of Death. This guy receives the least attention because he abandoned his kingdom 300 years ago, greatly upsetting the Eternals. Despite this, he won't give up his rights to prevent another aspect of himself from seizing control of his domain. He believes that having more under his control makes things better because it gives individuals more freedom. According to his siblings, he also subscribes to a very hippie worldview that asserts that everyone has the right to repudiate their duties. In the comics, he is shown as a big, red-haired guy who is frequently armed and wearing a beard. However, that only applies when discussing the instance in which he carried out his duty. Later on in the narrative, he reappears as a wanderer with long, red hair, yet he is physically smaller and leaner. Destruction, sometimes known as the Prodigal, traverses the cosmos while evading his obligations. Destruction appears to have lost communication with his siblings after removing the sigil that permits them to call him. In the gallery of the Eternals, his sign is a sword, although he doesn't really answer if his brothers use it for what could well be said that it is merely decorative. Delirium converses with the Prodigal and could possibly be aware of his whereabouts. Night and Time. They are the beings that brought birth to the seven brothers, even though they are not expressly thought of as part of the Endless. It is made clear that Night is their mother and that she is a cosmic figure who represents the utter blank before creation. The Endless Father, Time, is the personification of the beginning of time and of all of existence. Time moves in a random sequence from a youngster to a middle-aged man, then to an elderly man. He has the power to alter space, reality, and time in general. Interesting trivia. These characters also have a few fun details. For instance, Eternals cannot pass away. They have done it twice, though, and since their burial rituals have such a high symbolic significance, we could include this. Furthermore, the rite must be flawless because everyone in creation is present to bid an eternal farewell. Others have made spurious claims to be members of the Eternals, maybe because to the significance these figures hold in creation. As in the Lucifer comic, when the Titans attempt to pass for members of the Eternal in order to enter the Dream's core. You may now watch The Sandman on Netflix. Your visit to our comic books and pop culture channel is much appreciated. Subscribe to Uncanny Collectibles for more unique information, scoops, and exclusive stories.